Hello everybody, dear English-speaking followers, clients, astrology lovers and friends. Here is Olga Vasilchuk from very sunny Costa Rica. I would like to talk today about the transits of the last week of April from the 23rd until the 29th of April 2018. This week I'm going to talk about corresponds to the first quarter of the moon. This is the second week of the lunar month that ends by the full moon in Scorpio on Sunday, April 29th, but in Europe it will be already on Monday, April 30th, but I will talk about the full moon in the present video, of course. The week will be very strategic, important and intense because the full moon on Sunday, the full moon in Scorpio, will open the corridor of the middle point of eclipses. Yes, we are entering the period of 2 weeks until the new moon in Taurus on May 15th, which will correspond to the middle point between the eclipses of winter of this year and the future eclipses of summer. But this part I will describe in details in the end of the video, so stay with me until the end. Let's start with other aspects. The intensity of the week is, among other aspects, justified by two aspects of Mars in Capricorn. The sextile, 60 degrees of Mars with the Jupiter on Tuesday, April 24th, is formed almost simultaneously with the conjunction of Mars and Pluto on Thursday, April 26th. The conjunction of Mars and Pluto is a very powerful aspect. It will bring us a lot of energy necessary to achieve our global goals, especially in the field of career, sport and politics. But it will also bring many conflicts in case of selfish forcing and imposing of our scenario in the name of our interests. The energy of the conjunction Mars-Pluto can be used both creatively and destructively, which can affect not only global political and military events, but also it can bring significant changes in people's lives. Like, for example, this aspect will create the impulse for new departures, the wish to achieve the desired by all means and methods, and an excessive hassle also. In spiritual development, the need to focus our requirements not only on the environment, but also, or maybe first of all, on ourselves, will come to the fore. A natural antidote to anger and indignation is the work on the development of forgiveness. And the forgiveness must be directed not only towards others, but also towards ourselves. We have to learn how to forgive ourselves, first of all. But the simultaneous sextile of Mars with the Jupiter will strengthen our ability to actively patronize or protect, and our ability to convince others in the rightness of our points of view. This sextile will soften the conjunction Mars-Pluto. The sextile Mars-Jupiter will stimulate career growth, the desire to improve social conditions, and to realize ourselves in the field of in different cultural activities. We will have the opportunity to enlarge our horizons by broadening our knowledge, especially by relying on foreign experience, on the experience in communication, in dealing with the foreigners and with other countries. Attention, here be careful. Honesty and respect for the rules of the game are recommended. Mentoring and working with youth will be in great demand during the entire week. But here, when we talk about the conjunction Mars-Pluto, we are not talking only about the conjunction Mars-Pluto. We talk here about the stellium, Mars, Pluto, Lilith, fictitious point, the black moon. It's not necessarily a bad combination, a negative combination. It is, in its constructive variant, it can be a period of extraordinary opportunities. I wrote 2 articles on the subject of the fictitious point, the black moon Lilith. You can find the articles about the Lilith and the signs of the zodiac on my website, Astro Esoteric Pro. These articles generate a huge traffic to my website. They're very popular. You will find in the article, the Lilith and the signs of the zodiac, the 3 levels of manifestation of Lilith. So it's a very interesting, it's a bonus for you today, because there is very few information online about the Lilith in the signs of the zodiac especially. So the manifestation of Lilith depends on the work, on our own shadow, because this fictitious point, as the farthest point of the lunar orbit, is associated with our delusions, the most fatal illusions, when the repressed inner contents become demons and internal monsters. But there is another option. By working on ourselves and by accepting ourselves, the repressed inner content is transformed into very special abilities and unique opportunities. Therefore, the conjunction, in the context of the conjunction of Mars and Pluto, Lilith can bring to the surface our deepest fears and distort the manifestation of force and energy through uncontrolled aggressiveness or aggression, impotence, different destructive states. In another more constructive variant, using our unique abilities, we can channel the energy and the strength of the conjunction Mars-Pluto, which is accentuated by Lilith, to large-scale transformations. We were able to achieve results that will go beyond the previous limits of the possible. We have one ingression this week. On April 24th, on Tuesday, Venus will enter the mutable air sign of Gemini, where it will stay until May 19th. And this transit, this ingression, will awaken in us the interest related mainly to the intellectual field and that of communication. For example, trade, education, travels. Financial investments and investments of other types of resources in these areas will be stimulated. It will be good for us, for example, to invest in our education and studies or to go on a trip. But it's also necessary to take into account that Venus in Gemini inclines us to flirt and also predisposes to frivolous expenses. There will be some superficiality in relationships, which is characterized by the lack of consistency and depth in feelings. I would like to remind you of some facts about Mercury. You remember that the last week on April 15th, Mercury ended its retrograde phase. Mercury is in Aries the entire month, giving activity, impulsiveness, and fever to our way of thinking and communicating. We can show frankness, excessive impatience, and in our exchanges with others. The advice here is to avoid excessive aggressiveness, and too spontaneous reactions in communication. We should pay more attention to the position of the interlocutors, and we should remember more often such important qualities as tact and diplomacy, which is difficult to do with Mercury in Aries, right? And Mercury will form a square with Saturn on the 25th of April on Wednesday, and I remind you that this aspect, 90 degrees square Mercury-Saturn, was and still is the background aspect of the month. During the square Mars-Saturn, in the absence of a clear purpose and without understanding our goal, we run the risk of encountering various difficulties and obstacles in communication. It will be also difficult for us to assimilate information. We will be able to understand and retain only what we really need in the future. Mental concentration, discipline of thought will be particularly important during this aspect. And as I said, this is the background aspect of the entire month of April. Mercury already formed this aspect on April 5th, being in its retrograde phase. But the aspect repeated now during the direct phase of Mercury will be more lenient than the first one, and it will have its own specificities. The issues that were a stumbling block at the beginning of the month, during the first square Mercury-Saturn on the 5th of April, can now come back in our lives, but in new circumstances we will find the solution to a problem, the solution that was not seen earlier this month. However, this is the aspect that limits, that brings limitations, restrictions, and delays. So between April 25th, 26th, it's better to postpone the resolution of important issues with superiors and with influential people, with official institutions. Business meetings may not take place at all, or they can be inefficient. There may be delays in obtaining information, in receiving documents, and these days are not favorable to travel. I remind you that Mars is in Capricorn the entire month of April, but I repeat this information. It's always interesting to recall the position of the planets each week. So Mars in Capricorn is in a very strong position, the sign of its rulership, promotes energetic and energetic activities, a lot of movement, a lot of activity, because Capricorn's energy helps to achieve a concrete, practical result and outcome. I remind you also that Jupiter is retrograde throughout the month of April, of course, the upcoming week. And Jupiter in its retrograde phase can somehow slow down the process of significant social growth and spiritual development, directing our consciousness in search of opportunities for the growth to our inner world. The impact of the retrograde phase phases of slow social planets is not as strong and visible as the retrograde movement of personal planets like Mercury, Venus, and Mars. But nevertheless, during the retrograde phase of Jupiter, we should not expect too many changes in, especially better changes, good changes in our career and social status. But people with the Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart, on the contrary, can meet new opportunities and social success. And the last aspect of the week, the Trine Sun Saturn 120 degrees on the 29th of April allows us to finish the month in a very in an environment of stability, because the Trine Sun Saturn is a positive, harmonious aspect that disciplines, brings together it helps us to mobilize our strength and determination. And the energy of the Trine Sun Saturn contribute to the organization, discipline, and allow us to solve accumulated issues accumulated in the recent past. This is the right time to seek advice and help from older and more experienced people. Negotiations with the bosses, with superiors, will be successful. It's also a good time for planification. We can create the foundation for the development of long-term projects. We can sign contracts carefully prepared. The harmonious angle between the Sun and Saturn extends the impact of the conjunction of the two planets of power and aggression described above, Mars and Pluto. But the last 2 or 3 days of the week and of the month will pass in a more relaxed rhythm and in a more optimistic, giving us a more optimistic attitude. I also remind you that Saturn became retrograde on the 17th of April in the 9th degree of Capricorn. I invite those who didn't watch the video that I prepared separately on the subject to watch this video, Saturn retrograde in Capricorn, but I will underline the main points of this transit. This will be the annual retrograde phase of Saturn. During this period, we will see emergence of all problems in personal and public life unresolved before. Life will teach us through difficult situations and even through suffering to be aware of our mistakes and imperfections and to overcome the difficulties that the mistakes and imperfections have caused. We will reap what we have sown. During the retrograde phase of Saturn, it's important that each person tries to give back all debts accumulated early, especially in the last year. Give back debts literally and in the literal and figurative sense of word. But once again, more details about this transit in the video that I just mentioned. And now the most interesting part of the video, the full moon in Scorpio in 9:38 degree of Scorpio on the 29th of April on Sunday, 8:58 p.m. New York time. Check your time in Europe. It will be on Monday already. The full moon in Scorpio, this full moon, the upcoming full moon, will be quite calm and will continue the evolution of the themes, of the subjects of the new moon of April 15th. Nevertheless, this is an opposition. This is the opposition of the moon in Scorpio and the sun in Taurus, which will provoke us to activity and to the manifestation of our will. At the same time, the configuration of the full moon, which is the opposition of the sun and the moon, obliges us to distribute our forces correctly, to find the compromise, not to go to the extremes. The decisions made at this time can be uncompromising, leading to a breakup with something or somebody important for us. The full moon in Scorpio, as any full moon, will reveal the real state of things, of the situation that was formed during the new moon of April 15th. If our enterprises had shortcomings during the new moon 2 weeks ago, they will become obvious, evident, and appropriate changes will have to be brought. It's also time to give up to what has not justified its value, and vice versa. Right now we can receive the reward for our achievements, the results of previously launched projects. The agenda may include issues related to other people's money, to the loans, to the security, and to the financial relationships, to the settlement of property issues, to the allocation of mutual funds, the theme of Scorpio, finances of others, in opposition to the theme theme of Taurus, mine own resources. The period of the full moon is characterized by the increased intensity, and in emotional reactions there may be more passion than the actual situation requires. People will tend to react painfully to the lack of respect, real or imagined lack of respect, which can lead to quarrels and conflicts. Well, for personal affairs, the days around the full moon, April 27th until May 2nd, may be difficult, even heavy. For professional situations, for businesses, professional affairs, the time is very productive, demonstrating to ourselves our own abilities and our own limitations. The issues of strength and power stand out on the forefront these days. And now the most interesting part. The particularity of this full moon is that it forms the position Sun-Moon, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Scorpio. They form squares to the points of the lunar eclipse of January 31st, 2018, on the axis of Leo Aquarius, when the moon was in Leo and the sun was in Aquarius. We all remember that. So the full moon in Scorpio opens the corridor, the period of 2 weeks, the corridor of the middle point of eclipses. So the particularity of the end of April and of the first half of May is this midpoint of eclipses, when the subjects, the themes of the eclipses of winter 2018 are progressively overlapping with the subjects of the future summer eclipses. So the corridor of the midpoint of eclipses. It is considered in astrology that the period of 1 year, 12 months, is marked by 4 points of power. Short periods when we live significant events or we live the change of life patterns. And these strategic points are, first of all, the eclipses that occur by pairs in the interval of 2 weeks, twice per year. So a couple of eclipses, sometimes 3, not 2, per season, every 6 months. These are strategic points when we reload, when we reprogram our lives, minimum for 6 months until the next season of eclipses, or even for 18 years and a half, because the eclipses will take place in the same signs in 18 years and a half, because the lunar nodes make the turn of the zodiac in 18 years and a half. This is the cycle of the lunar nodes. So the eclipses are the power points of 1 year period. 2 power points. The other strategic points of the year are the phases of the moon, such as the full moon and the new moon, that occur at the equal distance of each of the 2 pairs of eclipses. 3 months after, if you talk about the current year, the winter eclipses, and 3 months before this future, the upcoming summer eclipses. And this is precisely the full moon of April 29th and the new moon of May 15th that will make us live again. They will revive the themes of the winter eclipses and will give us a hint of the themes of the upcoming eclipses of summer. For this reason, during the next 2 weeks, we will be led to experience more troubles and complications in our affairs than usual. We may be overwhelmed, for example, by a depressed mood or by a state of preoccupation. And here's a very important remark. Some people say that, well, the eclipses, yes, I know that it was the day of the eclipse, but I didn't feel nothing special. I was feeling well physically and emotionally. This is because not a single planet in the birth chart of this person was touched by the point of the eclipses. But even though it was invisible, the new program for the next 6 months, corresponding to the house of the chart where the eclipse was projected, this new program was launched. So the person will live significant events during the next 6 months. Maybe the result of this new program will be seen by the way in 3 months by the middle point of the eclipses. But at the moment of the eclipse, the person was feeling good, because the point of eclipse was not touching her planets or the cusps of the angular houses. If in your chart personal planets or the angular houses of your chart were touched by the points of eclipses, they were affected, yes, touched, the next 2 weeks for you will be a turning point, very critical, difficult, intense moment, especially near the full moon and the new moon. The full moon of April 29th and the new moon of May 15th. These days will be the main cause of turbulence. So imagine the vector of 90 degrees. The themes of the eclipses of winter, they meet with the themes of the future eclipses of summer, but in the context of the angle of 90 degrees. The themes of the eclipses of winter will come back in our lives, but in the form of conflicts, confrontations, and crises. After the new moon in Taurus, the tension will decrease and we'll start advancing in the direction of the future eclipses of summer. By the way, on the 9th and on the 18th of June, the Sun in transit will form trines to the points of the eclipses of winter, and of course logically it will form sextiles to the points of the future eclipses of summer. I hope you're following me. And this will be the moment of the harmonization of the situations corresponding to the houses of the horoscope of the chart where the eclipses were and will be projected. But we have to survive until this moment. For now, during the next 2 weeks, we will have to dive under the surface of the reality, handling complex crisis and complex situations of transformation, facing the destruction in the negative scenario or the rebirth in a positive scenario, variant of scenario, of the aspects of our lives that will move to another level of existence. We will move to another level of understanding of these situations. We will have to destroy a part of our past, the existing stability, and the established scenarios that are obsolete. And here we talk about the situations corresponding to the houses of the chart that received the eclipses in winter. And this will make room for the new, and this new will enter our lives by the new moon of May 15th. Some structures may collapse themselves without our participation if we deliberately refuse to resolve conflicts and contradictions. The situation will be out of our control if we neglect the dynamic of the situation, bearing the theme of the eclipses of winter, and the liberation of space will be forced, more radical since we resist to this, and therefore particularly dramatic. So the 2 weeks of the corridor of the midpoint of eclipses will be the threshold for the future perspectives and perspectives in the situations related to the themes of the upcoming summer eclipses. And in order to make this transition, we will have to bring some serious reforms. These 2 weeks have the maximum potential for a great restructuring, after which our reality will change radically and irrevocably. Something will leave our lives forever, and at the same time something new will be born and will begin its existence, will take a new departure. And here we talk about situations related to the themes of the future summer eclipses. The destructive variant of our work on the corridor of the middle point of eclipses. The new reality of our life will be based on the dramatic contradictions, on the destructive process in everything that concerns the houses of the horoscopes where the eclipses have been projected in your personal situation. If we do not resolve these contradictions in the period of the corridor, we will face the consequences of these unresolved issues in summer 2018. The constructive variant. A new stage in our lives can begin as the time of concentrated activity of great strength, which we will direct towards the transformation of our reality in the direction that we need. In this case, during the next 3 months, by the season of summer eclipses, we will be able to benefit from changes which will pass to another level, to another scale, when the changes will be manifested maximally through greater projects and grandiose opportunities in these spheres of life corresponding to the houses of the chart that will receive the projection of the eclipses in summer 2018. I hope that you followed me, that everything is clear for you. I hope that the information was interesting and useful, that you will use it constructively. Happy full moon in Scorpio. Good luck for the corridor of the middle point of eclipses. Thank you for your time and your attention, and I talk to you very soon the next week. Goodbye.